Right move or wrong move? To explain his comments, Skip Bayless.
Stephen A. Smith, I'm going to exercise some tough love on Robert Griffin III here today. This was the wrong move because it was a completely unnecessary move. I'm on record. I have already picked the Redskins to win the NFC East and to contend for this year's Super Bowl. I am on record. RG3 will ultimately be a better quarterback than Andrew Luck. I'm on record as saying, hey, let's give the kid a break because he is still just a kid, still just barely 23 years of age, playing in that cauldron of a media market that loves its Redskins almost to death. As you know, Stephen A., in D.C., it's Redskins, Redskins, Redskins. It's mania, especially now that the Nationals have fallen on their faces. But I hate it. I'm concerned about the fact that almost on a daily basis, we all have to sit back and watch Robert Griffin III clarify his remarks or restate his position on this issue or that issue or this or that. And I must admit to you, I'm concerned because the face of the franchise leader of the Washington Redskins is coming across slowly but surely, just in part, as almost a thin-skinned diva receiver type who overreacts to everything that's said in the media about him, and especially by his Twitter followers about him. You both, Kerry and Stephen A., know how I feel about reading your Twitter responses, how much I don't like it, especially not just for TV personalities, but for professional athletes. I'm afraid that RG3 is starting to become a prisoner of, if not a victim of, reading his Twitter responses. We've seen it happen with Johnny Manziel, and then we saw Chipper Jones get off Twitter because he couldn't take it anymore, and the golfer Lee Westwood went out of his mind late in Sunday night into Monday morning and just made a fool of himself responding to the idiots on Twitter. No, Robert, you're way better than this. You've got to stay above the fray. Play this cooler. You don't need to do this. You are more valuable than and more popular than your head coach for all of his Super Bowls and Elways. Stop it. Stay above it. Keep your differences with Mike Shanahan behind closed doors because this is not a good look for you or your football team right now.
Well, then, Skip Bayless, correct me if I'm wrong, what you're really saying is that it's not yesterday's press conference that you had a problem with. It was the one before that when he said, I can't BS my way around this, and he gave the answer that he gave. Because that's where he sort of aired the proverbial dirty laundry. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Now, let me say this. I fully support what he did yesterday because I suspect that the senior VP for communications, Mr. Tony Wiley for the Washington Redskins, is behind this, and this dude is one of the most brilliant dudes at what he does. He's one of the best in the business. That's why Tony is the best.
Not sure about
when
this.
you've got that going on, well, I'm just saying, you may not be sure about this, but again, you're talking about damage control because this story was not going anywhere, and it was something that was going to linger. Think about what RG3 said yesterday and really absorb that for what it's worth. RG3 said, he's the coach, I'm the player. Sure, we're going to have disagreements, but it's not like I'm going to engage in insubordination. I'm paraphrasing here, of course, but that's basically what he was saying. He was just being honest as a player, answering a question as to how he felt. But that doesn't mean there's dissension within the ranks. He simply reminded everybody that he's a player. He knows he's a player. And as a result, he is answerable to the coach. It's not the other way around. And that was his way of reminding the world, don't think that I'm some big head, marquee, prima donna style athlete that thinks that I get to do what I want, when I want, how I want, whenever I please. There's a level of protocol that has to be followed, and I want to make sure that everybody understands I am cognizant of exactly what that is, and I'm going to make sure to conduct myself in an appropriate fashion as it pertains to that. That's the kind of message that you have to send, particularly in the aftermath of what he had said the previous day in the nation's capital, with the Washington Post calling you, and that local media contingent who knows their football, loves their Redskins and understands when damage is in the making, when trouble is in the making, because they have seen it on many occasions in the past. This is a very experienced fan base that knows how to read between lines, and RG3 did absolutely the right thing by coming out there yesterday and saying what he said to squash the momentum of this story, which was not going to go anywhere, which is why I brought up Tony Wiley's name in the first place. Because you talk about damage control, this man's a specialist at squashing it, and that's exactly what transpired yesterday. And I think RG3 did the right thing and made the right call.
And I don't. I took him, Stephen A., to task yesterday, Robert Griffin III, over the first salvo that he fired. And I made it clear you can't have it both ways. You and your dad can't say that Shanahan deserves some blame for leaving you in the playoff game too long and then come full circle and say, he's keeping me out of practice too long. He's keeping me out of games. I want to play. I want to get back quicker, and he won't let me. Obviously, Shanahan's running a little scared. So there is an issue going on here. And to your phrase, damage control, if there's damage control being done, that means there's damage in the first place. I think that yesterday just dug the hole a little deeper because you're saying, hey, media, there's no conflict here. You already told us there was conflict the day before. You can't reverse field and say, hey, no.
Yes, he can.
You guys are overreacting this. You can't overreact to what he said the day before. He did it. Everybody reacted the way he reacted, which is, I got a problem with my schedule here. I want to play. I want to play in the exhibition games. I'm sorry, Stephen A. There's clearly a conflict, and there is damage control because there's damage.
I think you're missing the boat here, Skip. Nobody is failing to acknowledge that he pointed out how there was a problem and that his voicing that concern did some damage. But there's a difference between you having a difference of opinion with your coach and not liking his decision and you potentially being a problem. Skip, he's a human being. He is entitled to disagree with the coach. As Coach Mike Shanahan said, he argued with Elway. You don't always agree with the decisions. Elway argued with Dan Reeves, even though that relationship didn't work out, which is why Mike Shanahan ended up in Denver to begin with. But my point to you is that coaches and players rub each other the wrong way occasionally, all the time. It happens in every sport. What you want to do, like RG3 did, is highlight and illuminate the distinction between me having a difference of opinion, not liking a decision the coach made, and, at the same time, I'm going to be a problem. No, he's saying to you, yes, I disagree with this position. That hasn't changed. I feel the way that I feel. But that's not to interpret it as meaning I'm going to be a problem for this man because I disagree with his decision. I'm just telling you guys, I disagree with his decision. I don't like it because I want to play. That's entirely different than coming across as if you are going to be a problem. That's two different things. I said to you yesterday, when you brought it up, I said, Skip, he'll be back playing in 3 weeks. What are we talking about here? He's just not going to play in the preseason. So what? Well, he doesn't disagree. He doesn't agree with that decision. I'm saying he doesn't agree with that decision. But just because you don't agree with the decision doesn't mean you're going to be a problem.
Point of order. Shanahan says, I had knockdown dragouts with John Elway. Did you ever hear about it? Did Elway go to the media with those knockdown dragouts? He did not.
Elway was a grown man.
Okay.
He was a grown man.
A second.
He was a grown man. He wasn't in his second year in the league and 23 years old.
He was under Dan Reeves, and this is a little before your time, but they openly, publicly clashed. Reeves versus Elway, Elway versus Reeves. And before you knew it, a heck of a football coach, Dan Reeves, lost that battle. And here came Mike Shanahan. They had private battles. They didn't have public battles. John Elway never went to the media. And again, you say he's a more mature quarterback. I told you, this kid's 23 now, barely 23. So these are growing pains. I'm just trying to give some constructive criticism here. It serves no purpose to go to the media and laugh and say, you asked me a question I can't BS. I got to tell you the truth. I don't like it. Well, now you've opened Pandora's box. And yesterday he tried to close it, and you can't close it anymore. And you know and I know there is friction between this coach and this quarterback.
But I'm not denying that. I'm saying applaud the effort for him trying to close Pandora's box. Why do you keep bringing up the day before? We both agree on that. We talked about that. The discussion today is, was he wrong for trying to come back and close Pandora's box? He made an attempt to close a box he should have never opened. That's the issue here. And I think that was the right thing to do.
Okay, but
especially because he's 23 and he's young.
I get your point. But we've had one day after another of restating of positions, of clarifying via Twitter. No, everybody, back off. This is what I really meant here. He should stay above that fray. He's better than that. It comes across as a little bit of a weakened leader for the franchise because he's constantly having to say, no, he's reacting to people he does not need to react to. Keep it all behind closed doors. Speak for the football team. Because this is a really good, to me, a really good football team that has a chance to do great things this year, but it does not need to be divided by coach versus quarterback.
But time out, Skip. I think that we, as folks in the media, are shirking our responsibility in all of this. The fact of the matter is, this kid didn't walk out there 2 days ago, walk up to the media and start running his mouth. They asked him a question as to how he felt about not playing in a preseason game. This dude is a competitor. He's got a will to compete as well as a will to win. He's an elite player. What did he say? I can't BS my way around it. I'm not happy. I want to play. What you're doing right now, understand, you're either encouraging him to shut up and don't answer questions or to answer dishonestly. I'm sorry, Skip, that's our problem. Because I don't find it, again, when you talk about opening Pandora's box, you do not want to make it so, if you're RG3, you do not want to make it so you're coming across as, I'm going to be a problem because I don't like this.
Remember,
that's a problem.
My problem
hold on. But there's nothing wrong. Hold on. But there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with him as a young 23-year-old looking at you and me and us and the folks that cover the Redskins and answering a question honestly about, I'm not happy, I'm not playing. It's not a crime.
Okay.
It's not a crime.
Remember, I'm keeping it in the perspective of, I thought he and his father were out of bounds during the offseason to say everybody deserves a little blame for what happened in the playoff game, suggesting, inferring that Mike Shanahan left him in the game too long. If he's the competitor you say he is, he should have applauded Mike Shanahan sticking with him that long, as I did. That's how quarterbacks get made. Unfortunately, the worst happened. The knee finally gave completely out and required complete reconstruction. I'm so sorry for that. But I'm not sorry that Shanahan gave him a chance to prove his mettle as a playoff quarterback. I'm good with this. He should have been good with it. And apparently he wasn't.
But remember, we both agreed at one point that he was in the media entirely too much, and this story was escalating.
It was.
And I get where you're coming from. And I get where, wait a minute. I get where you're coming from with that. And I don't disagree. But let's be clear about something here, Skip. Answering that question the day before yesterday is an entirely different issue. Now, you can take it and put it on top of everything else and make the point that you're making, and it's valid. But as an isolated situation, answering a question as to whether or not you're happy about playing in a preseason game, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. And we got to be careful. Listen, we got to hold ourselves accountable if we're going to hold them accountable and sit there and say, wait a minute, we made that, we blew that up too. I'm talking about media-wise in terms of the industry, because I want him to be able to answer something honestly. I want him to be able to tell me, I want him to be able to say, I want to play in this preseason game without us jumping to the conclusion that, now there's a problem with him and Shanahan.
Stephen A., you and Skip can debate, and I'm sure many people are debating how RG3 is handling himself.